I feel like I've talked about the Spurs quite often, but it's actually been around a month since the last time I talked about them, just before the start of the season. And well, now it's about 3 weeks into the season, about a quarter of the way through the season, and we've seen quite a few things that I think are going to hold the test of time as the season goes on. I mean, there's some unpredictable things because who knows, with players missing, with games getting postponed, like the most recent one with the Spurs missing a game against the Pelicans. Who knows about those factors? But in terms of what we're seeing from players and teams, normally the first 15 to 20 games give you a sign of what's to come. And I think what we've seen from the Spurs hasn't surprised me, or probably a lot of you guys, but it's still been good, and there's some things that we can still talk about in regards to rookies like Devin Vassell and even six men like Patty Mills who are coming in and having a breakout season at 32 years of age. Shout out Patty Mills for having that kind of a season. But there's still definitely some talking points from the start of the season for the Spurs because they've started the season really strongly, and a lot of people who wrote them off thought they just weren't going to be good. Well, it's not looking too great to start the season. Now, before I go any further, if you could drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, both free things to do. That's my best advertisement for it. You might enjoy it if you like NBA content, and it's free. It just really helps out the video, so that would be much appreciated. Now, I've talked a lot about the likes of Keldon Johnson, Lonnie Walker, DeJounte Murray, and small players like Derek White. All of those guys, I've talked about them a lot, and I'll still talk about them because there's still some things to cover. But I want to start by talking about Devin Vassell because now we've seen him play, and we expected him to be a rotation piece. At least I did from the get-go. Now, we've seen Pop has had some tough love towards rookies, but Vassell clearly looks like a standout player in preseason and in college. He looks like someone ready to go. And I think he's gone under the radar because no one's talking about him as one of the best rookies, and that's because he isn't putting up the same amount of points as those other players. Those guys that are scoring in double digits, although taking a lot more shots and just being score first and pretty much score only players, well, they're getting more of the credit than Devin Vassell, who's been relatively efficient. I know he's shooting only 37% from the field, but when you shoot 41% from three and do so on a lot of attempts, your efficiency actually balances out. So he's been relatively efficient. He's not taking too many shots. He's staying within his range, and defensively has definitely been his calling card. He's been fantastic on defense, and already he's a great team defender. He plays some good on-ball defense. He's averaging 2 steals a game over the last 6 games. When you look at players leading the league in steals, he'd be right up the top if he played the same amount of minutes as them. And he has been right up the top over the last 6 games. He would be around third if you just went off how many steals a game he's averaging over the last 6 games. That's the kind of numbers he's putting up on the defensive end of the floor. And you can just see he makes the right rotations, he makes the right reads, and he's got the ability to stay with a multitude of different players from guards to wings. Once he puts on a bit more bulk, which I expect, he's definitely going to be a menace on the defensive end of the floor. Offensively, at the moment, he's just sticking within his limits, but he is showing signs of someone that can shoot off the dribble like he did in college. I think people had him penciled in as a 3-and-D guy. Definitely not what he was. At times, he took over for Florida State. Just like I mentioned with Patrick Williams, they weren't a team that had like a go-to scorer. They loved to share the ball. They didn't want one particular guy to just score 30 a night. So that's why people might have penciled him in as just a 3-and-D guy, but he can definitely be more than that. But just at least for the foreseeable future, this year and the next, he'll probably be a 3-and-D guy until he gets more confidence. But I don't see Vassell as someone who has a ceiling like people were saying before the draft. I think when you've got someone who's that good defensively and he has shown signs of being a good creator off the dribble, the sky's the limit really. And he's shown already throughout the first 15 games of the season, he's getting better and better every game. Now, everyone is starting to learn about Keldon Johnson and how he's a future star, but we've known that for quite some time. That doesn't mean we still can't be impressed with what he's doing. What he's doing is what he did in the bubble and what he promised to do for the last 15 games of the season. He's attacking the rim, he's attacking the boards, he's still shooting the 3-ball, not at a great rate, but he's still shooting the 3-ball. That's important. He's not a liability by any means from beyond the arc, and he's been a decent free throw shooter throughout his career so far, which suggests to me like he's going to be an okay 3-point shooter, but that's not where he gets his work done. He's been good defensively. He uses that big frame. He's a good solid defender, averaging 6 attempts at the rim a game. That's more than any other Spurs player, more than DeRozan, DeJounte Murray, and he's shooting over 55% there, which is good as well. He's someone that's just got no fear going to the rim, and in his second year, effectively kind of still like his first, when you consider he pretty much only played the last 15 games or so of last season. Like, he's still only 25 games into his career, 25, 30 games into his career, and he's already looking like a 15 to 20 point per game scorer this year. Going forward, he's going to be a bona fide 20 point per game scorer and a future all-star, in my opinion, if he continues on this trajectory. Keldon Johnson has definitely been one of the bright spots for the Spurs, and a reason why this team is so promising going forward. But I don't think you can talk about the Spurs and just kind of put all the praise on the young guys, because you've got to look at guys like DeMar DeRozan. His usage rate was at 26 last year. It's down to 23. It's those small things that these guys are taking a backseat in certain categories. DeMar's assist percentage is up. He's playing the perfect role. He's gone from someone that would always look for his shot. I know his last few years in San Antonio, he hasn't been that, but he's got even more to the point where he's playmaking on a consistent basis. In fact, his assist-to-turnover ratio is elite. I mean, it's ahead of the likes of Chris Paul and only behind a few starting point guards and shooting guards. That's the kind of basketball he's playing. Very team-friendly basketball, getting his teammates involved, and when he does need to take over down the stretch, he's been good on multiple occasions. I think back to that Minnesota game where he took over. He's done it on multiple occasions over the course of his Spurs career and over the course of this year. DeMar's playing the perfect role for this team, and he's contributing to this team having a really Spursy kind of feel about them. They're just not turning the ball over. They've done it consistently for 3 years now. They've done it consistently pretty much since Pop has been in the league, at least since I can remember. But 3 years in a row, they've had the least turnovers in the league. This contributes to them having a better defense, a top 10 defense, without really having that same kind of anchor as a lot of these other defenses have. They've got some good wing defenders and some good guard defenders. But it's the fact they're not turning the ball over. They're not giving away silly points like a lot of other teams have. And that's why they're a top 10 defense in the league and above 500. And DeMar DeRozan's ability to make the right plays consistently definitely contributes to this. I mean, in general, it's just hard not to like what all of their young players are doing. Lonnie Walker's taken the jump we expected him to take. He's getting to the rim more frequently. He's shooting the ball still at around 40% on pretty high volume. That's what you want from someone in just his third year. He already looks like someone who has potential on the defensive and offensive end of the floor, but at the very least, he's going to be a very good shooter and someone who can get you buckets, whether it's a six-man role like someone like a Patty Mills going forward, or whether he delivers on his full potential as someone who's a highly athletic guard that can defend a few different positions and get to the rim and shoot the three ball. Like, he's got that kind of upside, but at the very least, we've already seen his floor, which is a good three-point shooter that can do a few different things, averaging 12 or so points a game. That's what we're getting from Lonnie Walker. DeJounte Murray's taken a leap. He's getting to the rim more frequently. He's a three-level scorer. He's struggling with his three-point shooting, but I think that'll come. His free-throw shooting's been fine. He was solid from beyond the arc last year. I don't know if he'll ever be a great three-point shooter, but I think he can be a solid one, and he's just having a bit of a tough patch. But the main thing is he's not afraid to shoot it like some people. That can be the biggest hurdle. But what he's doing in terms of a playmaking aspect, still a good defender as always, and getting to the rim, being more aggressive offensively, he's taken a leap as well. Every single one of their young guys have taken a leap, kind of like we all predicted and expected. It's still good to see. You can't take it for granted just because we expected it to happen because it happened in the bubble. Doesn't mean it was going to happen, and it's translated, and it's translating to wins as well. Now, it's not unusual for the Spurs to be underrated. I talked about that in a video a few months ago, but when I look at how people perceived this young core before the start of the season, I was pretty perplexed. People thought they were around kind of middle of the pack in terms of a young core. They were outside of Bleacher Report's top 10. The Ringer, they were ranked 14th behind the likes of the Kings and the Washington Wizards in terms of a young core. Players under the age of 25. The Washington Wizards. That's not counting Bradley Beal or a washed-up Russell Westbrook. That's the Washington Wizards. Like, how many times do I need to say that? That's where the Ringer had them ranked. I think they were doing some advanced metrics, but no advanced metrics should tell you that the Washington Wizards had a better promising young core heading into the season or currently than the San Antonio Spurs. So that's kind of where they had them pegged. I don't think there was any kind of crazy disrespect having them at around 15th to 14th in the league, middle of the pack, but it just kind of sums it up as well. No one really thought they had any kind of special talent. They thought, this team's going to be okay. But I think they're going to be better than okay just because they don't have someone who's scoring 30 points a night like other teams. They've got multiple guys that have all improved their game, that are playing winning basketball, are defending well, and are making their own individual strides, whether it be attacking the rim more, shooting the three ball better, or just doing better things defensively. All of these Spurs players have a role, and to fulfilling that role, it's easy for people to kind of get caught up in this narrative that you need to have someone that scores 25 points a night, and then automatically your young core's better than the other young core. What if you have 6 players under 26 like the Spurs that are contributing over 20 to 30 minutes a night and contributing to a team that's over 500? It's just as impressive as any young core in the league currently. So to have them ranked around middle of the pack, I don't agree. But that's what we've seen from the Spurs, and they're already proving people wrong. I mean, these 6 guys that are already contributing, you've got the likes of Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, Derek White will come back. Haven't even mentioned him. He hasn't even played this season. He played 20 minutes. Derek White was their second best player in the bubble, and he'll come back eventually. He hasn't played. Lonnie Walker, there's 6 of them. I forgot the names that I missed, but you get the point. 6 of them. Haven't even mentioned Lucas Sumanich, who I think he's still a work in progress. Some people are getting kind of frustrated with him not playing any minutes. The reality is he came into the league as someone that was expected to take at least 1 to 2 to 3 years on the sidelines. We know Popovich, he's not someone that's just going to give a rookie minutes for the sake of it, particularly someone that was definitely a work in project when he was drafted. To think that he was going to get significant minutes by this point in his career, I think that was a bit ambitious. But if there's one thing to talk about with Sumanich, if a shot is anything to go off, how good a shot looks, how attractive a shot is, then he's definitely going to be one of the better players in the NBA just based off his shot mechanics. And I think you can definitely see his potential. But yeah, give him at least another year. I'm not worrying about Sumanich at all. I'm focusing on 6 players that are under 26 or under, and contributing significant minutes to a winning team. A team that still doesn't get talked about. They're rebuilding, and they're winning at the same time. All these teams that are seen as rebuilding on the up, that's exactly what the Spurs are. They've got a couple of veterans, but the majority of their playing time and production is coming from young guys, although there is some production coming off the bench from the likes of Patty Mills and Rudy Gay. Shout out to them. They've been fantastic. DeMar DeRozan's been good as well. There's no doubt they've got very good veterans, but they're still getting a lot of production from their young guys. They don't have the superstar talent yet, but when I consider all those players that are already contributing to winning basketball and showing signs on both ends of the floor, I could see at least 2 players from this crop already becoming all-stars, or at least all-defensive fringe all-star type players. They've got enough talent on this roster to be a very good team going forward. The Spurs aren't getting enough credit for their rebuild that they're currently in the midst of. They're currently turning it themselves from one of the oldest teams in the league to one of the youngest teams in the league in just the space of a year or two, and they're doing it seamlessly. It's just incredible. It's what the Spurs always do, and they're going to continue to do it. By next year, these young guys will be taking the reins over from DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge. They'll draft another player that'll come in and be good like they do every single year. And by the next 2 to 3 years, this team will be back in contention for where they normally are, around the Western Conference Finals.